Now, it's no surprise that a lot of people are leaving their jobs. It's no surprise that people are entertaining different ideas when it comes to how they fund their lives. And the reality is, since the pandemic, there's been a rise in redundancies or people leaving their roles or whatever it may be. Now, of course, working from home has felt like, to some at least, a good idea. But at the same time, it creates a prison and it accelerates the experience of certain mental health conditions that we may get. Now, the World Health Organization only really made burnout recognized as some sort of condition, so to speak, as of 2019. So it's only really about 2-3 years old at most. And it says it's related to occupational activity, so to speak. So things related to work. Now, the way I see it, based on my experience, is that burnout is a condition related to high levels of stress that are continuous. Of course, if you remove stress, then it means that you don't have those stresses anymore. Okay, so it's our response to stress which determines how we feel. Now, it doesn't mean to say that it's a mindset thing, because I don't think that's fair. It's not at all. Burnout is something more. Burnout is the feeling that you feel like you don't have enough of something. Let's say time, money, energy. Usually people complain of feeling fatigued. You can have the sort of burnout where you're doing too much and therefore it wears you down. You can have the sort of burnout where you're not doing enough, or there's a conflict of values and it wears you down. You can have the burnout where you're doing multiple things and of course it wears you down. And so this is a plea really to line managers. You really need to hear this. It is your responsibility to ensure that you are protecting your workforce. It doesn't matter if they're a permanent employee. It doesn't matter if they're a contractor. It doesn't matter if they're fixed term. It's your responsibility. Those fools who say it's just work don't understand how much work can affect people. There are people who are considering suicidal thoughts because of the way the culture operates. And dare I say it, culture is made up of people. Culture is heavily defined by people. And so it is for you guys to model yourselves as servant leaders, okay, authentic leaders, and do your best possible to ensure that people's well-being is at hand. It's not just about the bottom line. It doesn't matter what you hear, what people say in terms of all these big organizations and these amazing brands. People are getting affected by this. And so the question then becomes, what can workplaces do? Well, number one, there needs to be clear boundaries in terms of the responsibilities for those individuals who are embarking on different tasks. Be extremely clear. And if that clarity is not made, you need to speak to your workforce manager. You need to speak to the resourcing person. You need to speak to HR. You need to speak to the line manager who is expecting these individuals to perform. The other sort of boundaries that need to be created is how long the meetings need to be. Meetings don't need to be 3 hours long. For what? Why? Maybe 90 minutes, I can understand that. Possibly 2 hours. But maybe there could be an incentive to have 5 or 10 minutes before and after these meetings where, you know, you prepare for these meetings. So what do I mean? So let's say, for example, you have a meeting at 2 o'clock. Maybe the meeting can start at 2:05. And if it's supposed to end at 3 o'clock, maybe it can end at 2 to 3. Okay. So really that meeting was shortened 5 minutes each way. Gives people a little bit of a breather. I remember one time I had 8 meetings in one day. Why? Not necessary. Also, for the person who's listening to this or watching this, who's experiencing burnout or who has got to this place, do not be afraid to ask questions. Do not be afraid to say no. Do not be afraid to not attend sessions that are not relevant to you, but because it's a nice to have. The exhaustion that comes from interacting with people behind the screen, if you're behind the screen, or just really absorbing the radiation, or being in the same position, in an imprisonment, so to speak, takes its toll. We are social beings by nature. Now, this is not necessarily a plea to say we need to go into the office, although I would say go into the office where you can, because it breaks up the day and it creates those micro interactions which becomes important. But again, you can be the judge of that. You can decide what makes sense for you. So create those boundaries. The second thing I'd say is ensure that you've actually got some time off booked. Now, time off doesn't solve burnout. It helps you manage. These are management techniques. So book some time off, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, a couple of days. Make sure it's staggered throughout the year. Maybe you want to do that beforehand, so you know that you've got that scheduled. And if you don't know when to schedule things, then maybe think about birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations, public holidays. These are all excuses to book time off. So make sure that's in. Another thing in terms of personal accountability is have someone you can talk to. Have someone you can talk to about this stuff. You know, I have friends who have moved into the contracting space as well. And some of them are feeling a bit burnt out. Some of them are okay, having the best times of their lives. But we talk about these different issues and topics. And so if you can't find someone in work who's going through a similar situation who can't do anything about it, speak to someone who you can trust, or at least you can be objective with. Because, you know, expression is a healing remedy, so to speak. Okay. The other sort of things you can do in terms of personal accountability is doing the basics right where you can. Eating good foods, opening the window, wearing loose clothing, ensuring that you're not always stuck to the screen and you're having at least breaks in between sessions. Ensuring that there is time for delivery and planning. Okay, so you need time to plan and you need time to deliver as well. Okay, execute on those things. So again, these are all things you need to think about. Now, of course, other ways to manage sort of like this space is looking after your body. So I spoke about eating right, drinking a lot of water, so staying hydrated. A lot of our headaches come from the fact that we don't drink enough water sometimes. Also wearing blue ray protective glasses as well. So they're extremely useful. They've helped me prevent, get headaches in the past as well. They're about £15 on Amazon. So these are things you can do. And also working out if you have the time, and if you don't, that's fair enough. But try have something, whether it's journaling or meditation or deep prayer or interacting with an accountability buddy or mastermind group. These are all things you can do. Something that's not taxing. Now, I want to say something which is interesting. Sometimes I resort to playing my PlayStation, okay? Sometimes I resort to watching a show with the partner. But at times, like if I'm not ready to sleep or if I'm doing something or whatever it may be, interacting with the TV in that way can be exhausting, especially if it's a big TV. It can be extremely exhausting. And so I wouldn't say that TV is the best solution. It helps you relax, that's correct, but it does take a lot of your focus and your energy. Now, again, I sympathize for those individuals who are experiencing burnout, especially those within the contracting space as well, because sometimes it feels like it's hard to speak to people. And sometimes the best solution, if not most of the time, is to leave that environment. I'm not advocating quitting necessarily, but if it means protecting your health, you need to leave that space. You need to. And if it means finding something else, then do that. Don't be afraid to walk, okay? But again, if you're a line manager, if you are a leader, please, I'm saying this with the utmost, sincerity and plea. Look out for your workforce. Ask them if they're doing okay. Don't just throw them off to training. Training's not going to do much. They're burnt out. They need time. They need to manage that. And burnout is something that you can't just shake off. Okay? Sometimes you even go to the GP and they'll diagnose it as stress, but it's not the same thing as stress. Stress is too much of something, and once that stress is removed, it's pretty much gone, so to speak. With burnout, it is a constant feeling of lack. It's a constant feeling of fatigue. It's a constant feeling of not feeling engaged, and you're just not that, you're not present. And so this is all to say that if you're in this space, I sympathize with you. Follow some of these management techniques. If you're a leader, do more, have more, and be more to be there for your workforce as well. I'd love to know, have you experienced burnout during this last 2 years? And if so, how many times have you experienced it if it's been more than once? Now, for those of you who are seeking in personal development and looking to improve their levels of goal setting, achieving their goals and accountability, I have a space known as the Mastery Academy. Now I've got a link below where you can join it for free, and there will be hosting different events, hosting different sort of content as well, and just really being a shared space of collaboration, enjoyment, but also focus on being a high performer and individual. So if this is something you're interested in, make sure you click on the links below. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.